Who is the greatest of them all? Why you, Nature Boy? Welcome back, guys. Woo, to Fog Wrestling. The Nature Boy, considered by many the greatest of all time, but not by Ric Flair himself. He's decided to be humble. He's decided not to put himself on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling because he has taken up all 4 spots by using his daughter, Charlotte Flair. No, that didn't quite happen, but would you honestly be surprised if Ric Flair just said the Mountmore of the Mount Rush, well, fuck, whatever it's called, whatever that stupid thing's called in America? Would you really be surprised if Ric Flair said his Mount Rushmore consisted of Charlotte Flair, Ashley, and Ashley Flair? Would any of us be surprised? Probably not. But there is no Flair on the current Mount Rushmore, according to the Nature Boy. He was on The Breakfast Club doing an interview, and this is what Ric Flair had to say about excluding himself from the list, whose 4 people are on the list, and why he didn't include The Rock, the Brahma Bull, on the list. Let's go. Quote, "I think it's better to have somebody else put you there. My Mount Rushmore, in terms of importance to the business, is Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, obviously, Taker, and I think Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the greatest performer of all time in our business. I can do a little bit of everything. That doesn't make me the best. I'm just being me. I never say stuff like that. I consider myself to be lucky to be considered one of the best." End of quote. So, first of all, I actually probably agree with Ric Flair. I don't know if that's my exact 4, but I can't deny it. I can't say no. I can't say it's a bad 4. It's a very good 4. Now, I can understand if you want to maybe include somebody else, but I think Austin has to be on it. 100% Austin has to be on it. I think so. Stone Cold, for me, is the biggest star the wrestling business has ever created. And then talking about biggest stars, you have to have Hogan, because longevity and the fact that he, I think, was the biggest star until Austin came along. You've got to have Hogan. Hogan changed wrestling forever. Austin kind of took it to new heights in the Attitude Era, but we can't forget the job that Hogan done getting wrestling to that point. So I think you've got to have Hogan and Austin on it. So that takes up 2 out of the 4 places on Mount Rushmore. Then you've got The Undertaker, the dead man, the Phenom. The guy's now been in wrestling, 30 years, 3 decades, 30 years of destruction. And Undertaker's one of those weird wrestlers that it's very strange with Undertaker, because he seems to have become more of a star, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's become more of a star since he retired. I genuinely think The Undertaker has become a bigger deal now, especially with the fact that he's able to do interviews, he's able to be himself and almost break character a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, he does stay loyal, he does try and stay in character, but during his career, he never really got to do, like, the interviews. He didn't really do much along those lines. But now I think that he's retired, he's able to do more documentaries and stuff like that. And I think The Undertaker's just become a much more massive character. He was massive in wrestling, but I think since he retired, he's become more of a pop culture kind of deal. And I think Undertaker is deserving of a place on this list. Like I said, probably the greatest character in wrestling history, and I say probably, I think he is the greatest character in wrestling history, probably the greatest big, that's not, no probably about it, definitely the greatest big guy in wrestling history. I mean, his leadership as well, when you factor that in, just being a locker room leader, basically he was WWE, he was WWF, he was the most loyal guy there, carried the company on his back for periods of times. You just think of The Undertaker, you think of WWE, you think of WWF. So I think Undertaker is deserving of a place on the list. And then 4th place, you've got Shawn Michaels. In my opinion, undoubtedly the greatest in-ring performer of all time. And I don't think it comes close. I don't think anybody is close to Shawn Michaels. If I had to pick a 2nd place, I would go with Kurt Angle. But for me, Shawn Michaels just like Ric Flair said, is the greatest performer of all time in the wrestling business, and I just don't see a way that you can put anyone above Shawn Michaels. So you can definitely argue that there should be a place on Mount Rushmore for the greatest performer. So I think that 4's fine. It's hard to argue with that 4. Now, some people will say Cena, some people will say Rock. I know some people have said Bret Hart should be on over Shawn Michaels. Absolutely not. I mean, look at the career Shawn Michaels had compared to Bret Hart. Longevity, you give it to Shawn. Main events, you give it to Shawn. Star power, I would give it to Shawn. Legacy, I'd give it to Shawn. I mean, who really these days cares about Bret Hart? Nobody. Like, the showstopper. Everyone. Shawn Michaels got more people into wrestling than Bret Hart did. 100%. Now, obviously, if you're Canadian, you're going to prefer Bret Hart, but, I mean, come on. Most people would prefer Shawn Michaels over the Hitman. He just was better. Bret was maybe better at crying and being a little bitch and complaining. And I know Shawn Michaels was a bit of a dick back in the day, but, I mean, if we're talking about as a performer, Bret Hart doesn't compare to Shawn Michaels. Does he really? Does he really? Shawn Michaels stole the show. No matter who he was against, no matter the match type, no matter the opponent, no matter the stage, Shawn Michaels. There's a reason Shawn Michaels is called Mr. WrestleMania and Bret Hart's not called Mr. WrestleMania, because Shawn Michaels was the guy that delivered and, you know, Bret Hart did not. But speaking about why The Rock isn't on the list, Ric Flair said the following, quote, "He would be, except he didn't stay long enough. I think part of Mount Rushmore is longevity. It's hard to be really good, and The Rock was great, but he took off. He's on my Mount Rushmore for interview skills and everything else, and I remain very close to him." End of quote. I think if we're being honest, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore based on interview skills alone, then The Rock has to be on that. And he probably has to be number 1. And I think Ric Flair would also be on that. I would have to say you've got The Rock, Ric Flair. I think if you're doing for interviews, it's probably The Rock, Ric Flair, Austin. And then even though I don't think he's great at interviews, I think you could just make a case for Hulk Hogan, just purely for the fact that he's got so many like iconic catchphrases and things like that. But no, definitely for sure, if we're doing interview skills, then I think The Rock has to be number 1 on that. So yeah, The Rock and Ric Flair, 2 guys that stand out. I mean, Scott Steiner as well, I guess. But maybe for different reasons. But I do enjoy seeing Scott Steiner just bash people. But yeah, guys, there you go. That is Ric Flair's Mount Rushmore. Do you agree with Ric Flair? They say if The Rock was there longer, he would have been on it. I wonder who he would take off for The Rock out of the 4. Who would he drop to be replaced by The Rock? And then he mentioned longevity. Well, what about John Cena? John Cena has been pretty good in the WWE. He's been there. He's got longevity on his side. I wonder if John Cena is deserving of a place on Mount Rushmore. Anyway, guys, that's it. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch you in the next one. Ric Flair putting other people over now for a change. It's weird with Ric Flair. One day, he'll wake up, he'll be humble, he'll be gracious, he'll put everyone else over and kind of downplay how good he was. But then other days he wakes up and he thinks he's the greatest thing to ever live in wrestling. It is pretty strange. Anyway, guys, that's it. Woo! Catch you in the next one. Peace.